What's going on, everybody? This is the Daily Fantasy Show brought to you by DFO. It is Monday, November 6th. We have a 6-game slate. We have the Light the Lamp tournament on DK, 3 levels. If you're in any of them, good luck. Not sure what FanDuel is doing. I didn't even open the app, but I'm sure they have something that at least mimics it a little bit. So, let's rock and roll, and let's get right into it. The heat is working. Got my sick New Jersey Nets Darren Williams third alternate red jersey. Whatever, have a bunch of sports jerseys, got to rotate them. Let's get to the first game of the night. You got the Minnesota Wild traveling to Boston to face the Bruins. Bruins are all kinds of banged up. It's going to be Tuukka Rask against, I believe, Devin Dubnyk. Now Brad Marchand is out, so the top line is Bergeron, Pasta, and Bjork. Looks like Minnesota's mixing up their lines as well. It's just a mess. The lines are really a mess. I think it's Koivu, like Stewart, and Granlund, and then Stahl, and Nina Ryder, but he's there with a road cone. The third line, like Zucker's on the third line, makes no sense. Boudreaux is trying to get some people motivated. Before I knew that Marchand was out, I definitely had interest in Boston 1. And I still may have interest in Boston 1. But it is significantly less than it was when Marchand was playing. The one thing I will say, Bjork does provide some salary relief. I don't know why I can't say that. They're also, the Bergeron's probably going to be primarily locked up against the Koivu line, which kind of cancels each other out. I don't like going against Bergeron. I don't like going against Koivu. So really, Boston without Marchand doesn't really spike my interest too much, which means Minnesota won. We are off to a great start. We have a case of the Mondays today. The Koivu line doesn't really interest me too much. If you want to use the Stahl Niederreiter line for some salary purposes, they are cheaper. They let you fit in some more of the expensive stacks. I think you can go there because the depth of the Bruins is absolutely terrible. I really don't have too much interest in this game as a whole anymore. In net, it's hard to trust Tuukka Rask. He did play well last game, 7,600. I think you can make a case for him in GPPs. Devin Dubnyk definitely becomes interesting now at 7,400 with Marchand out. I feel like I'm on West Coast time right now. I will be on the West Coast in a few weeks, so we'll be doing the show from the desert out in California. Dubnyk makes for an interesting GPP play now that Marchand's out. Really, it's Bergeron and Pasta, and then a whole bunch of other dudes. So, I think you can make a case for Dubnyk in a GPP. I would avoid both these goalies in cash. I just don't. I guess like you could use Tuukka in cash, but the depth is so bad. I mean, I really would probably avoid both these goalies in cash. GPP, okay. Cash, no thank you. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Vegas Golden Knights traveling to Toronto to face the Maple Leafs. Big story out of this was Austin Matthews left skate this morning, and he is a game-time decision. the lines for Toronto are a whole gargle of garbage. It's just a big mess with without Matthews. Nylander moved to the center on the top line. He'd be centering Hyman and Brown. That's if Matthews doesn't play. If Matthews doesn't play, I listed Connor Brown as one of my favorite value plays tonight. It is Maxime Lagacé, more than likely, in net for Vegas, and he isn't very good, so Connor Brown at 3,900 on DraftKings does provide some nice salary relief. Just skip to the part where Bozier is getting another Hattie. Well, see, that's interesting because when I made my lineups, or I made my main lineup this morning for Light the Lamp, the first thing I put in was, Vancouver won, that line. And then I started, digging into the slate more. And I really like this Vegas second line tonight. Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, and William Karlsson. I think if you aren't going to use the Horvat line for Vancouver because you're worried about ownership, you don't think they're going to have a repeat game, which would be really hard because that line combined for 11 points. I think this is a very good pivot off them. They have been very good this season. Toronto is poor defensively. Freddie Anderson has been bad this season. The one thing that does worry me about using Vegas is their lack of scoring on the road. But Smith and Marchessault played together in Florida last year for the Panthers, so they have good chemistry. They're on the power play. I believe they're going to avoid Kadri. I think the James Neal line is going to get Kadri, so whatever depth line they get for the Maple Leafs is not going to be very good. So I definitely love this second line for Vegas tonight. They are, I think they are more expensive than Vancouver one. So if you are trying to squeeze in a bunch of studs, you might need the extra salary for Vancouver one, but you're going to get Vancouver one at much higher ownership. Vegas 2 will be much lower owned tonight. I think they are a very good play. I wish I didn't have to decide in my one lineup between Vegas 2 and Vancouver 1, but that's something I'm going to be debating for the next few hours. In net, also for the Vegas, I don't mind the top line either. Eakin, Neal, and Perron. I prefer Vegas 2 because that line's probably going to the Neal line's probably going to get Kadri. So if you're going Vegas, it's definitely going to be Vegas 2 for me. In net, I have Tuck is not a defenseman. You can use him as a one-off though. Oh, Eakin's on line 3. Holla's on the top line, right? Yeah. Holla bread. Tooch is a right winger. He provides decent salary relief. Yeah, Holla. Sorry, I got that mixed up. D-man for Vegas, if you're going to go there, I would use probably Colin Miller at 3,900. Shea Theodore, just make sure he's in. If he's in, I would use Shea Theodore. On the Toronto side, I really don't have too much interest. The top line without Matthews does kind of interest me. Nylander, Hyman, and Brown, I think it will go under owned because I think people, are going to be off the Maple Leafs because of Matthews, but I think you can go there as well. It doesn't really excite me too much, but this is a high total game, and I think you should have exposure to it. So we'll go with that. Freddie Anderson at 8,000. Get the fuck out of here. I know Vegas has trouble scoring it on the road, but Freddie has been very poor this season. I can't make a case for paying 8,000 for Freddie Anderson. Lagasse at 7,000. If you think the Leafs are going to struggle without Matthews, and you want to get feisty, especially if you're making 20 lineups, you can have one or two Lagasse. Not my favorite thing in the world, but if you want to pair him with Vegas and you think they're going to win, and he's only 7,000, he lets you fill out your roster appropriately, so you can do that if you're having a case in the Mondays and you want to see some money burn. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Columbus Blue Jackets traveling to New York to face the Rangers. The Rangers have won 3 straight. Now they're back at home. I want to lean New York Rangers in this game, but I feel like that's kind of being homerish. And I do like the top line for the Blue Jackets, even though they're banged up. Foligno, Panarin, and Josh Anderson. The Rangers have been giving up goals. Maybe Hank is rejuvenated and you don't want to go there, okay. But I think it's a decent option tonight. On the flip side, this is why I like the Rangers tonight. If you read AD's article, he mentions it as well. The Dubinsky-Jenner line has been absolutely terrible defensively. I'm not even responding. The Dubinsky-Jenner line has been terrible from a possession standpoint, and they're going to be matched up against the Zibanejad line, who is with Kreider and Pavel Buchnevich. I think they're firmly in play tonight just because of that. Even though it is at home, the Rangers are going to match up the way they want, but if they are going to get some of the Jenner Dubinsky line, you definitely have to have exposure there. I also like the second line of the Rangers, even if they get the Foligno line. The Foligno line has not been great either, which is Kevin Hayes, Rick Nash, Matt Zuccarello. It's a really nice line. The thing is, it is Bobrovsky. He's cheap. He's good, 7,500. So, I think, New York Rangers 1 is going to be a nice contrarian stack tonight. I think people are going to use Bob. He's cheaper than Lundqvist. He's cheaper than Holtby. He's cheaper than Freddie Anderson. He's cheaper than Jacob Markstrom. Cheaper than Hellebuck and Bishop. So, he's basically one of the cheapest goalies of the night. And so I think New York 1 is a very nice contrarian option tonight. In terms of using Hank, he has shown that he has been very good. Again, the Rangers have showed they can't stop anything on the defensive end. If you think he's going to stand on his head, he definitely can. This is a winnable game. So for me, I have interest in both top lines. I think I have a little bit more interest in the New York Rangers top line just because of an ownership standpoint and the matchup they're getting. Excuse me. Second line is very talented and also is in play. I think both power plays are in play. The Rangers PK is pretty bad. The Columbus Blue Jackets PK is pretty bad. So I think you can go about it that way. Shattenkirk is the play for me on the blue line for the Rangers. Werenski or Jones is always the question. Jones is cheaper, but I think Werenski correlates better with the power play. It's really a preference for you. You can even use both. They're 10,000 total. So let's move on to the fourth game of the night. We have the Arizona Coyotes traveling to Washington to face the Capitals. It is Scott Wedgwood against Braden Holtby. The Coyotes told Scott Wedgwood to... How sure are we that Bob is starting? We won't know until Tortorella speaks at 5 o'clock, but you have to assume it is going to be Bobrovsky. If it is Korpisalo, it bumps the Rangers up a little bit. I also don't mind using Korpisalo as a GPP Flyers 7,300. But I am working under the assumption that it is going to be Bob. If you see anything otherwise, let me know. But until Tortorella speaks, I'm assuming that Bobrovsky is going to be in net. So, Arizona Coyotes against the Washington Capitals. It is Scott Wedgwood who is going to be staying with the Coyotes against Braden Holtby. Wow. How chalky are the Capitals going to be tonight? I'm not sure. Just the lines. Yeah, Wedgwood's in for a tough night. But you'd have to think that the Backstrom line is going to go up against the Derek Steffen line, which leaves the Ovechkin line against the Dvorak line. The Dvorak line is... They are terrible defensively. I think the play for the Capitals, it is a preference play because even the top line for Arizona isn't that great defensively because Domi got moved to the second line. Perlini's on the top line. It is a matter of preference for me. The top line as a whole is cheaper because Jacob Vrana is on there with Backstrom and Oshie, who are both in the mid-sixes, and Vrana is 4,000. The second line is Kuznetsov, which is 6,900, Ovechkin, 8,100, and then with Devontae Smith-Pelly, 3,800, but they're still a couple thousand more expensive. But just from a defensive matchup standpoint, I have a slight lean to the Ovechkin line. If you want to leave Devontae Smith-Pelly off, okay. You compare them with Carlson on the blue line. It's really all I have interest on the defense for Washington. You want to punt Orlov, okay, just because of ice time. You really want to get punty, use Brooke Orpik just because he sees a ton of ice time. Okay, but really it's Carlson or bust for me. Again, the top six is a personal preference. If you want to stack the power play, you can. Arizona limits their penalties. I think they've taken 35 in 15 games, 34, like somewhere between 34 and 37 in 16 games this season. So, that's not a very high total, but their PK isn't very good, and you can definitely stack the power play. It is very expensive. You are going to need some cheap guys to fill that out. They're not very good. They're right up there with the Winnipeg Jets in terms of how fucking terrible their penalty kill is. For me, I just have a slight lean to the Ovechkin line. I'm sure Ovechkin's going to garner the most ownership on that team. Understandably so. I just like them going up against Dvorak, Domi, and I think whoever else it is. It's just not a good matchup for them. It is Scott Wedgwood. Either lines in play. Again, I just have as a personal preference, I prefer the Ovechkin line. In net, Wedgwood does not interest me at 6,800. Not even if you're getting silly. I guess you could, but I'm not going to recommend Wedgwood to you. Holtby is an interesting case at 8,300. Yeah, I think the Caroline's a decent play tonight. The Capitals are pretty poor defensively. Holtby has been very good the past few games, but if you're relying on just goalie skill as opposed to actually defense helping you out, I think Arizona one is a good play. Keller is amazing. He's only 18 years old. I think they're definitely in play. I think they're a nice pivot off of Vancouver one as well. They're definitely going to see much lower ownership than Vancouver tonight. I think they're in play as well. Holtby at 8,300 is an interesting case for me. He's the most expensive goalie on the board. He has been good recently. The Coyotes do struggle offensively. Um, I think he is in play in any format. I always have reservations about spending up over 8,000 in a GPP just because how much higher is the ceiling at 8,300 than like 7,500? You really need a shutout to maximize your value at that price. Can you get a shutout? Sure, but so can any of the other guys. So in cash, I can see it 8,300. He has a nice floor. The Caps are probably going to win. GPP, I'd probably go elsewhere just because he gives up 2 goals on 21 shots. There's no value at 8,300. So let's move on to the second to last game of the night. We have the Winnipeg Jets traveling to Dallas to face the Stars. It's going to be Ben Bishop against Connor Hellebuck. I think Dallas top line is probably up there with my top plays of the night, which isn't a shock. There's nothing surprising there. The thing is, they aren't very good at even strength. But the problem for Winnipeg is they take so many penalties. Their penalty kill is atrocious, and Dallas is awesome on the power play. So, top line, Seguin, Ben, and Radulov. If you could fit Klingberg, look for Ben and Dustin Byfuglien to throw down again. I don't know if that's going to really take you off Jamie Benn if you can fit him. If you can't fit Klingberg and you still want to use a Stars defenseman, you can use Essel Lindell, 3,300, or Stephen Johns. Outside of 2 games ago when he only played 5 minutes because he was banged up, he has been very productive from a game log Warrior standpoint, and you can definitely use him at 3,100. Dallas 1 is clearly in play. They are the most expensive line, however, to full stack, so you are going to need some salary relief to fill out the rest of your lineup, which there are plenty of options tonight. Vegas 2, Vancouver 1, which we'll get to, Arizona 1. I think, this is Winnipeg on the road, so that gives me a slight lean to the second line, Little, Ehlers, and Line A. They are going to avoid Seguin more than likely. I do like the top line as well, Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor. I don't know if you have to go there. They are pretty expensive. I think they're the second most expensive line stack of the night. I think, Winnipeg 2 is a little bit cheaper. I think they're my preferred play for Winnipeg on the road. If you can fit Byfuglien, go ahead. I also like Trouba, who's $1,000 cheaper at 4,700, and Josh Morrissey at 3,400. Now, goalies in this game are interesting. I don't really have too much interest in Ben Bishop at 7,700. I think Winnipeg can score. They can score with the best of them any game. I think Connor Hellebuck is an interesting play for me at 7,200. I don't think he has a regulation loss this year. He lost last time out to the Canadiens in overtime because the Jets couldn't stay out of the damn penalty box. If the Jets can limit their penalties, I think Hellebuck can win this game, which makes for an interesting GPP flyer at 7,200. Again, that would require the Jets to stay out of the box. Yeah, I think he's 7-0-1 or 8-0-2. something ridiculous like that. He's been great. The problem is the Jets really have to limit their penalties. Can they do that? I don't know. But it could be worth the shot at 7,200 to find out. So let's move on to the last game of the night. We have the Detroit Red Wings traveling to Vancouver to face the Canucks. Detroit is on the back-to-back. Gustav Nyquist is hurt and out. There is no goalie confirmed for the Red Wings. It's either going to be Howard on a back-to-back or Peter Mrazek. Jacob Markstrom is confirmed for the Canucks. So here we go with this conundrum here. I think this is a great spot, again, for Vancouver 1. They're going to avoid Zetterberg. They're cheap. They have good value. Here's the problem. The secret's out. They're going to have a lot of ownership tonight. I don't know if you can still fade them just from an ownership standpoint. Like for me, I just want to build the best lineup I can with the best plays that I can. And I firmly believe from a value standpoint, from cheap lines, I think they are right up there with Vegas too. It is really a matter of preference. This is probably going to be, Vancouver has the chance to put up some goals in this game. Detroit on a back-to-back in Western Canada. They're probably going to have some tired legs. My first instinct is say, Vancouver 1, definitely. The more I dug into the slate, I'm saying Vegas 2. So do you go with your gut or you go with your research? I think you can go either way. Let me just give you from the ownership standpoint, Vegas 2 is going to be much lower owned. From a actual play perspective, I think Vancouver 1 is a slightly better play. So my gut says Vancouver 1. My research says Vegas 2. So that leaves me in a nice little conundrum for the next few hours. From a Detroit standpoint, who knows what the heck their line is going to be without Nyquist. It does mean that Marty Ferk is going to move up. They are on a back-to-back. Again, I don't like targeting teams. Back-to-back on the road. They did beat up on the Oilers pretty good yesterday, but I still think Jacob Markstrom is firmly in play. I don't really have too much interest in Jimmy Howard if he's going on a back-to-back or Peter Mrazek. If it's Mrazek, that kind of bumps me up on him a little bit. I love Peter Mrazek. I just don't think he is in the right system to succeed. However, he still is a very good goalie. Mrazek went yesterday. See, because the 4 p.m. game was not on the main slate on DraftKings. What do I know? He shut out the Oilers. Yeah, so it's probably going to be Jimmy Howard. So I'm not as high on Jimmy Howard as I am on Mrazek, although Jimmy Howard is the better system goalie for the Red Wings. I think Vancouver 1 definitely is still the play. I'm still going to be debating them in Vegas 2 until 7 o'clock. I don't know if Larkin, Mantha, and Athanasiou is going to still be together because of Nyquist being out. It remains to be seen who gets moved up to the top line. But, if that line is together, I do have some interest in the Larkin line. However, I do have Markstrom as one of my favorite goalies tonight. So there's that. If you're using Vancouver, obviously the play is Del Zotto. If you're using Detroit, you can use Mike Green, Trevor Daley. None of those guys really interest me too much. Cronwall is old and broken. So that is the 6-game slate. Anyone getting in to light the lamp tonight? Yes, no, maybe so. Anyone lighting the lamp? Any questions, concerns, life questions. Why do I have tremendous bags under my eyes? Because I am old and tired. Thoughts on the Duchesne trade? Who's going to be more higher owned? Dallas 1 or Washington 1? I think Dallas will be higher owned. Matthews as a game time decision. You got to keep an eye on that. Who won the Duchesne trade? I think Nashville. It's too early to tell, really, because is Matt Duchesne really that much better than Kyle Turris? And the Senators gave up a crap ton of assets, even though Andrew Hammond isn't, a top prospect. The other guy isn't really a top prospect. They did give up a first and a third round pick to upgrade slightly at center, but Turris going to Nashville solidifies their depth down the middle. Samuel Girard was expendable. Favorite 3-3-2 trio. Obviously, Vegas or Vancouver for salary relief, whichever one you want to lean there. I think then I go Stars and Caps if you can fit it. I think everyone really kind of got a good piece of this trade. So, Colorado got picks and prospects. They might be good in the next 27 years. Who knows? I can't believe this water. They make you pay $1.99 because it's perfect pH. I didn't buy it. Someone got it for me. Favorite goalie tonight, Jacob Markstrom. I'm a homer. I don't even like the Canucks, but I love Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom or I don't even know. When I did my goalie rankings, and of course now I forget them, but I did a list. Yeah, Markstrom and GPP. I did list my goalies. I know that Daily Faceoff is the Daily Notebook has my goalie rankings, Adam's daily rankings, Brock's goalie rankings. I know I listed Markstrom number 1. I forget who I listed number 2. It wasn't Holtby. It wasn't Bishop. It might have been Hellebuck, actually. No, it wasn't Hellebuck. I'm not that crazy. Dubnyk I have as my number 2. That's right, because Boston is all kinds of messed up. Dubnyk 2, Rask 3. I think Holtby's in the top 5. Bob's up there. But when I did the rankings, I don't really go off salary or any site. I just go, what line wins the light the lamp tonight? I wish I could say Vancouver 1, but I think it's going to be Vegas 2, which I might have to. I'm going to be debating that all day. I have my perfect pH water. It has minerals for my nutrition. No problem. So now that we went through the 6 games, AD's line matching article is up in the premium section. You also get the any chance of if you have a FanDuel related question, I will do that going forward. I play both sites. I'll load up FanDuel going forward. Vegas 2 is Riley Smith, Jonathan Marchessault, and William Karlsson. So you get the optimizers, you get projections, you get chat with me, you get AD's line matching article, you get all that cool stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys win some money tonight. You can always catch me on Twitter. You can catch Adam on Twitter. Make sure you check Daily Faceoff for updates about Matthews, the Red Wings lines, anything else that is a game time decision. And we will see you tomorrow for a nice solid slate. Peace.